Hi guys. I'm Natasha Joseph. I'm an artist, and I don't know whether I should wait for more people. I can't really tell if or how many people there are. But yeah, I'll just start. um, so I'm basically an artist. I do all sorts of different things. I do film. I do photography. I also do murals. Occasionally, I dabble in textiles and I like to organize events. So basically, I do all sorts of things. So when people ask me what I do, I usually just say I'm an artist. Um, but I'm definitely the kind of artist that starts with an idea and then chooses a medium based on how well that medium can kind of, fulfill my idea or just bring my idea to life. So a lot of the time as well, my art has always been something that, I have certain emotions or I'm going through something or I have certain questions, and it's a way for me to process those questions or answer those questions in some way. And sometimes I don't even like really realize what I'm doing, and I'm not conscious of this idea that, oh, I'm feeling a certain way and I need to answer these questions in my head. But it's more that I'm using expression and just like a creative output to process it. And then by the end of that process, I suddenly find myself no longer needing to ask those questions anymore, because in some way or the other, I've taken it out of myself and I've created something, and I've used that energy and that emotion to create something. So I think that's always been really important for me. And it's like a very primary reason for why I've always done art. And I think the second thing has always been about community, without really realizing it. But it's always been about working with other people, and creating things together. I'm not very good. I mean, I am good at creating things by myself and working like as a one man unit. And usually when I do that, it's because I'm trying to process an emotion. But most of the time, I much prefer to work with people, because I feel like if you have an idea and someone else has an idea and you put those ideas together, you make something totally different that you would never have thought you could have made, and you couldn't have made just by yourself. Um, and I think that kind of happened because I started making films, and I come from a family of filmmakers. Like, my granddad's a filmmaker, my uncle's a filmmaker, my mum's a filmmaker, and my dad's a filmmaker. So when I was growing up, it was a really fun environment in the sense that, you know, they didn't I didn't really like focus so much on this idea that being creative and, you know, having musicians around and going to the theater was something special. I just thought that everyone did that, but apparently not. And it was really good because it exposed me from a really young age to just how being creative isn't like something that you have to try, but it's something that you live every day. It's a way of thinking, and that everyone has the potential to be creative, because it's just a way of thinking and thinking outside the box, or thinking outside any shape that you want to talk about. So from a really young age, I was exposed to a lot of filmmakers, and I decided when I was like about 4 or 5 that I was never going to be a filmmaker. I was going to be an artist. And then when I was older, I said I was going to be an artist that uses film in her work, which technically is what I've done. But then when I was about 13, or even younger than that, maybe, I made a film and I really enjoyed it. And then I understood what the whole drama was and why everyone was going and being filmmakers, because it's really fun. It's a really fun process. And more than anything, it's chaos. And that's what I find really fun, is that you never know what's going to happen, and it changes so quickly, and there's always a problem. And it's just many people always coming together to try and solve these problems, which I think is amazing. Um, and I think after I made that, and it was just such a fun experience. It was me three of my friends in high school or middle school or just school, and it was about this girl who I don't really remember. It was about a girl who used to take a lot of buses, and she really enjoyed this idea of not knowing anyone on the bus, and the fact that strangers in many ways are easier to talk to than people that you actually know. And it was like kind of experimental, and when I look back on it, i'm I don't like our skill level, and it's a bit cringy for me, but I think that there's a really interesting like intention to it. And it was just such a fun process. We spent 24 hours filming. We didn't sleep. We filmed through the night, um, and it was just really amazing. And then I realized that's what I really enjoy, working with people and kind of making those memories together, creating something together. And I feel like I've gone a bit off topic. Um, but yeah, so what I was saying was community is definitely something, collaboration has always been something that is a key, aspect of my practice in a way. Um, and I don't really realize it, but I'm always trying to include people into the things that I'm doing. And I'm also always trying to make it music, dance, art, all in one, because I think that creativity shouldn't be limited to one specific medium. It shouldn't be limited to one specific practice. And also, I think creative people get along really, really well together. And they just don't realize it because they tend to stick with their own creative people. So artists always stick with artists. Dancers always stick with dancers. And, well, musicians and dancers seem like they kind of, collaborate a bit more, but artists usually stick with artists. And I really enjoy like creating and curating experiences that bring all of them together. So that's kind of how I got into doing these events, which I do under We Belong Here. So it's like a bi-monthly kind of art exhibition and open mic, but it's an open mic for anything. It's theatre, performance, dance, music, basically anything you want to share. And the whole idea is it includes art and music and dance and all of these creative practices into the same space. And often that's quite interesting to curate art around all these performances, because unlike the performances, what happens is that it's not alive, it's not animated, so it's quite hard to make it as engaging as, say, an amazing fabulous dancer or an amazing singer who can captivate you through your senses. So in a way, curating it so that it feels like you're always in the middle of art. So wherever you look, it's surrounding you. Is quite an interesting experience, and that's definitely something that I'm really interested in. Is from the moment that you enter a space, how can you curate? Well, it's not that you want to control, but it's more the fact of how do you curate an experience? How do you give people things to remember, or make certain ways of experiencing that space, like just in terms of how much space they have to walk down a corridor, or how the light hits the floor and what color that light is. And so it's a lot about curation, but then you also have to take into account the performance, so you're constantly trying to curate performances into that, and that's something I really enjoy doing. Oh, sorry, I was just looking at the comments. Hi, Richita. Um, so yeah, that so events as well as design is something that I've become quite interested in recently. Mostly just like focusing on this idea of engagement, and especially with design. I never realized this because I didn't really like do graphic design or typography and things like that. But the more I'm doing it, the more I'm realizing how subtle it is, and how, certain colors can have underlying subtext and can give off certain vibes. And I know like people literally study this to understand how certain typographies can make you feel a certain way. And it's all very subconscious. But I think what I'm trying to focus on more in terms of my practice and what I'm interested in is definitely looking at how you can, design experiences and how you can curate experiences. And how do you want people to interact? How do you want them to feel? How do you want them to like bounce off of what you're creating? And what is it that you're wanting them to do with it? So I think, especially being in isolation, um, because a lot of also what I do at ArtCore is setting up exhibitions and curating, and obviously that's working in physical spaces. So something I'm really interested in is something that I've been thinking about a lot is how do you create virtual spaces that interact, that engage, that make you want to keep looking? Because a lot of what I've seen online at the moment in terms of exhibitions feels quite like a website. But then how does an online exhibition, differ from a website? How do you make make someone feel like they've stepped into a different world without really leaving their house? So that's definitely something I've been working on. Um, and I think the other thing that, as I was thinking about things to talk about today, the other thing that I thought I would talk about is the fact that when you do what you love doing as your job, you can sometimes like forget to create because you're always creating, and then you've got a limited amount of creativity, and you're always creating, so you kind of feel like you're still practicing every day. But then, like, for over the last 3 months or so, um, since my residency, I just like haven't gone into my practice as much because I just haven't felt not motivated, but I felt like I was always working on something, either with like freelancing or working at ArtCore or working on different things that like I kind of put my own practice aside. And I was just like, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. And then I just didn't feel like I needed to have a practice because I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Um, so then, with this whole like social isolation and quarantine, I thought, okay, why don't we just create something every day, because I've lost that practice of just creating something because it's fun. Because I've been doing it, which is also super fun, and I'm like I really enjoy working and being able to be creative as I work. I don't think I would be able to not be creative, but also just doing something and creating something because it's fun takes that pressure away from you. And so I made this quarantine prompt list. So every day I make something, or I draw something, or I edit something. Um, and it's just really fun. Like, I forgot that it can be super fun, and there doesn't need to be any like reason to do it. And often you forget that, because I studied art and I did fine art, there was always a reason, there was always a need to kind of like explain why you're doing something and have a whole backstory to it, and look at references, and that's really good as well, and being able to write about it. But then sometimes it just sucks the fun out of it, and you really just forget that you can have fun, and that's why you love doing it. It's because it's fun and it makes you happy. And I think now is a really, really good time to do that, is to just feel motivated to create something because it's fun. So I've definitely been doing that, and it's been really fun. Some days it's a bit frustrating because I can't think and I can't create, and I think that's okay as well, because I think as creative people, sometimes you get so used to always having 10 ideas in your head and being able to think of ideas really quickly, that when you can't do that, it's really scary, and you kind of feel like you're burning out and you're losing your creativity. But really, it's just like one day in the scheme of, your brain's kind of just not functioning at that level. And I think that's fine. Like, it's good to see that process because it's like a natural process. Um, and yeah, I think it's also just about during this time, I've been using it to do these prompt lists, and every day I do something different. I do a different style, and it's fun because my hands kind of forgotten how to like regularly practice something and do something, and it's really meditative, and it definitely keeps me really engaged with where I'm at and what I'm thinking about. And it's again become about just taking something from inside you and putting it out there and processing those emotions and enjoying that and seeing it being realized. I've also been taking photographs of my street because I think this is going to be a really historical time. In like 10 years, people are going to look back at this whole experience, and I think it'll be really good to document it. And what I've realized is people seem to be so much kinder, and they are super kind. And um, I'm seeing so much of my neighbors than I usually do because everyone comes out into their garden every day, and people are like yelling 4 houses across, and everyone's like laughing together and talking. And there's something really beautiful about this whole experience in the sense that we're all meant to be isolated, or in isolation. But actually, what's really important is that we shouldn't feel like that, because it's a very sad thing to feel like you're isolated from people. And so, actually, even though physically we need to be really far apart, um, it's really beautiful to see that people are coming together and people are actually sharing with each other. And there's so much kindness, and they're just trying to look out for everyone. So I've been taking some really interesting photographs. A lot of them are my neighbors, like standing and looking into my garden, and it's just really interesting to watch. And it's just, I don't think we'll ever see something like this again. And so I've been taking photographs, and I've been taking photographs on my dad's old Pentax, which he gave me when I came to uni. And because it's film, I think it really makes me appreciate the medium so much more, because I'm capturing moments, but I have no idea what these moments are. And I think I know what they are. But I remember my dad telling me, um, you don't actually ever see the moment that you capture, because you see before and you see after, but you never actually see the moment that you capture with the camera, because that second that you think you've captured, the shutter closes. And I think that's also really beautiful. So this whole process has been really interesting, and I'm really excited for when I can go and develop my film, unless I manage to convert my basement into a dark room if we're going to be in social isolation for longer, which might happen, which will be amazing as well. Um, but yeah, so within the community as well, while I've been doing this documentation stuff, um, we did a really interesting thing last night. So, because I do events, I really like organizing things, but I can't do that because you're not meant to have people near you. You're not meant to have social gatherings. So what we did was, me and my flatmate Jordan, we basically decided to take our instruments outside, plug it into amps, and because there was the clapping yesterday for the NHS, we basically wrote little invites, posted them through to everyone, ran away, didn't see anyone, didn't go near anyone, um, and we had a little set list, and we basically said, "Come outside, we'll play the music, and then we can all have a nice sing along." And now it's become a weekly thing. We're going to do it every week because apparently people really enjoy music, obviously. And it was just really interesting again because we had neighbors popping their heads out of windows, looking from across, singing along, and you just felt really connected to people. You felt like you weren't alone. And I think that's the whole point of this, is that that's what I want. That's what I want to be creating. I want to be creating experiences that make you feel like you belong somewhere, and that you're not alone and you're not isolated, but actually you're sharing in this moment in time, and you're sharing something together. And you can do that from 2 meters away and in your own houses, but you can still do that together. And I think in a way, sometimes it's good to look at these kind of, not episodes in life, but like times in life as a challenge, as chaos that you're trying to figure out. And I think we can do that together. I feel like this is becoming a motivational talk, but that's kind of some of the stuff I've been working on. I'm just going to look at the time. Ooh, it's 4:20. I don't know if you have any questions. I feel like I've kind of run over. How can we see the films you've made? That's a very good question. You can see them when I update my website, and since I'm now home, I will have time to update my website. My website has just not been updated for almost 7 months, so I'm thinking about putting some stuff on my website. I also made a documentary about communities, which is about 32 minutes long. And I don't know if people are interested in seeing that, or if that's something that people might watch and want to watch. So maybe I might put that on my website as well. I'd be interested in that for care homes. I don't know which bit. I will ask you later. Um, that's what I love about music, its ability to transport you to a place different from where you are. Yeah, it's really, it's magical. It's also really hard to compete with when you're trying to put art in the same space, but it's a good challenge. But it's really magical. People all know one song, can come together, sing it, and feel so connected. And that's genuinely what it was like yesterday. We had 3 songs, and we tried to pick songs that like was an older song like Amazing Grace, so more people would know it. And then we did Twist and Shout because it's a catchy song, and we also did Valerie, another catchy song. And now we're taking requests, and we're thinking about having a choir. Everyone can stay in their gardens, and we're going to try and arrange. Well, I'm not going to. I'm not the musician. Jordan's a musician. Um, so yeah, it's really, it's just finding things to do and trying to create events, and safe events and experiences that we can make and help people feel more together, because I think that's the point of art, really, is to feel connected and to share and to feel part of something more than anything else. I feel like I should probably go because it is now 4:23. But thank you so much. This has been super fun. I feel like I haven't read what you're saying, but I will, and I'll try and get back and reply to your comments. But thank you so much for watching. I feel like I've waffled at some points, but I hope you've enjoyed it. And I've quite enjoyed it. So thank you, and bye.